feed the people 40% more nutrition that they've lost in their cooking.
Right, yeah, I see what you mean. Huh. So, I mean, okay, obviously, stay away from the microwave. That is done by now. But there's other things too. Again, if we, I guess, backtrack a little bit and talk about the Wi-Fi, the signal that we're kind of bathed in, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
This does also affect your, let's see here, your melatonin levels. Isn't that correct?
That's right. It interferes with hormones. And this has been well defined. There's a lot of research that has looked at this. I've gotten this from a number of different sources. Dr. Neil Cherry would have been an expert in this from New Zealand. You can look him up on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And he's done papers on the drop in melatonin in people living near mobile phone masts and in these signals. So that whenever you're having your melatonin dropped, it's quite a problem for you as a person because, first of all, melatonin is what sets your sleep pattern, helps you to sleep at night. And it also hunts down free radicals and cancer cells. So it's part of the repairing of your cancer cells, and keeping you in good health. So any drop in that is serious. And in anybody who gets bathed in microwaves, their melatonin drops. There was a study that just came out by the mobile phone manufacturers, at least it was reported in the Independent, here, the Sunday Independent, only about a month ago, that their own research turned up that it, of course, wrecks your sleep when you're exposed to microwaves from Wi-Fi and wireless equipment.
Right. So, and if your sleep is upset, then your body's chances of recovering from potential exposure to the Wi-Fi or something else, your immune system, of course, kind of repairs itself and the nervous system during the night. But if that can't be achieved by your body, you're going to be in a downward spiral basically.
Absolutely. It's like withdrawing money from a bank. You're continually withdrawing money from a bank. Eventually, you'll go bankrupt.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happening here. Because our melatonin rate drops in women. Drop in melatonin, any doctor would tell you this, is a forerunner to breast cancer. So it's very serious what they're talking about. This isn't minor. This is quite major. When you start playing with hormones and you start causing changes in the blood, and the blood-brain barrier apparently opens whenever you put on your mobile phone. So your blood-brain barrier is now opening up. And that's serious because normally your blood-brain barrier is your brain's immune system, and it's there to prevent any contaminants from coming into the brain. But whenever you hit it with these pulse microwaves, the blood-brain barrier opens up like a sieve opening up, getting bigger holes, and it's now allowing contaminants that are in your blood that normally wouldn't get to the brain to go into the brain and accumulate.
Toxins, heavy metals can pass right through there then?
Absolutely. So if, say, you have mercury coming out of your fillings and it's in your bloodstream now, and that blood's, and it then passes through into the blood-brain barrier and into your brain, it may be small, these events, but they continually mount up, so it's an accumulative type of situation that we have.
Well, exactly, and again, it's if you look at kind of the rate of, let's say, cell phone use or even Wi-Fi, then in this case, it's becoming more and more all the time. It's more common. People use it more and more all the time. That means again that your body will never have getting the chance to rest and recuperate itself.
That's right, and this is most serious, I think, in children, because children are like the canary in the mine. They're smaller, they have thinner skulls, their ear is thinner. And they're in a developmental stage. They're not fully formed. And if you look at what's happened in the last 10 years, we didn't evolve with this microwave stuff in our atmosphere. This pulse microwaves is new to us.
Yeah.
So we haven't evolved with it. And now we have children who are scanned in the womb with microwave scanning equipment. And then when they're born, they're got a baby monitor, which is microwave, put next to their bed for most of their years as a little child. And then there might be the walk-around-the-house deck phones in the house and maybe even a Wi-Fi laptop or two in the house. And so their exposure is starting very young. And we don't know what the effect is. But if there's going to be bad effects, it's going to start on children, for sure.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you add in the local mobile phone mast. And you start to see that the exposure to the children of today is extraordinary and is nothing like you and I were brought up in. We didn't have this exposure. This is all new to us, too.
Right.
But we're fully formed.
So, I mean, this is not good. And there's another thing here that's potentially could be a huge problem. And then we're talking about the entire human race, because we know at this point that the goal, so to speak, of the kind of Wi-Fi services that are out there, the cell phone towers, they want to have, first and foremost, they want to have a global coverage, meaning that when you ever go out there with your, you're having a service from a company, you shouldn't encounter any dead spots, so to speak. So this is something that's going to be, on the entire globe, basically, right?
Absolutely. They have to saturate us. And they're already doing it. I mean, Sky TV is shooting down from satellites from outer space.
Yeah.
So we're already getting saturated with all kinds of stuff here. And a lot of these signals, as I say, they're putting up mobile phone masts. Now they need, for Wi-Fi, they're putting Wi-Fi into town centers all over Britain at the moment. As they do that, they need little micro masts, they call them, miniature cell masts. They're very small, and they put them up on, like every fifth lamppost will have one, just to saturate the whole town center. So the amount of stuff that people are getting and up close is extraordinary. It's quite high now. It used to be that there was one mast outside of town pointing in.
Right.
That's not true anymore. They're in town centers, and now with Wi-Fi, they're on almost every other lamppost. So you're getting a lot of this. And that's not the end of it either. They're now putting Wi-Fi into public buildings.
Right.
So when you go to the library, you're going to be exposed to Wi-Fi even if you don't want to use it.
Exactly. And is there any kind of, people are now, beginning to get cautious. As we said, there are studies in the UK going on, and they're taking it out of schools and so forth. But is there any kind of legislation going on that can caution or hasten the progress of this as it is now?
Well, in different countries it's different.
Right.
And that's the problem. If we even look at the safety levels that we're dealing with, and I tell you that the difference between one country and another is massive. For example, if we look at the safety level in Salzburg in Austria, it's 100,000 and maybe a couple of 100,000 times lower safety level than it is in Britain.
Right.
Because in Salzburg and in China and in Russia, they have erred on the side of safety. And they've gone for a much lower safety level. And the safety level that they've chosen in Britain and in other parts of the continent in Europe are based on cooking a piece of meat. So a thermal heating effect is what they base their limit on.
Okay.
But cancer doesn't require cooking. If I give you certain chemicals like benzene, if you're exposed to benzene, you'll get cancer. There's plenty of chemicals that cause cancer, and they don't heat you.
Right.
So why would you possibly have a safety limit that's based on cooking a piece of meat and not based on cancer? So different countries have different exposure levels now.
Right.
So they're much lower in Australia, New Zealand, Italy, and China and Russia and so on. They're much, much lower, hundreds of thousand times lower than what we're being exposed to.
So some countries are almost like the guinea pig here. They're trying it out, seeing what happens, and if it's good or not, that will show, I guess. I mean, it's insanity. Of
course it is. I mean, this is the safety limit. My understanding is that there is no science backing up the safety limit. No studies were done to see what effects this does. No health studies were done at all. They just released it. And some countries are with lower limits, but they're just a guess. They're basing it on cancer in Salzburg and Austria and Switzerland and places like that. They're erring on the side of safety, whereas in other countries, and in Britain in particular, they just don't seem to care. They're just doing it based on heating.
Right, and I mean in some areas they're still arguing if sensitivity to electricity is even a real disease or real sickness, you know. So I mean, that's the level that this is on right now. People don't. It's like if you go back and you know, before the time when it was common knowledge that bacteria existed. It's like, yeah, well, you know, I can't see it, so it's not real. It doesn't exist, you know.
That's right. You see, we're always learning new knowledge, and then it changes, it turns everything on its head that came before it.
Right.
And this is going to go the same route. It already is, because there's a large number of studies have been done. On the World Health Organization's own website, they had, and along with PubMed, another website, they were showing that 80% of all of the studies that had been done on mobile phone masks found health effects. 80% of them. And yet they're still putting up mobile phone masks.
Yeah. No, it's not good at all. And one thing here also that is very concerning is that if they do some tests, the question is, okay, for how long are these tests progress? What I'm getting at is that DNA damage, especially, is something that actually could kind of we could see the full consequence of DNA damage many generations down the line. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. As we did, we should have learned our lesson with asbestos. During the up until 1976, asbestos was a terrific building material. In fact, the World Trade Centers were built with asbestos because it was perfectly safe, no side effects at all. And now we found that people who were exposed to asbestos actually didn't turn up to have their cancer till 50 years later.
Yeah.
And that's not taking into account genetic damage, which we found whenever we did DDT. We used to spray the troops who came home from the war with DDT, and we were using it all over the place. And now it was being banned because it causes genetic damage that goes on for generation after generation. So there may be some people in the society who are very susceptible to this, and they may get seriously ill or get cancer after 1 or 2 years of exposure to this.
Yeah.
And other people may be a lot longer. In some cases, maybe even 50 years, 60 years. This hasn't been around long enough to know what the long-term side effects are.
Exactly, yeah.
You would need to have it be here for at least a lifetime of somebody, and even then, you could still not be sure that there weren't genetic damage that was going to appear generations down the line. Yeah. And I have seen a research paper from Greece which took mice and exposed them to a mobile phone for a number of minutes a day, and by the 5th generation of mouse, they were totally infertile, not able to reproduce at all.
Really?
We don't know if that's not happening to us. We know that at the moment, the sperm count is dropping and fertility is dropping.
Yeah.
But we haven't actually started looking at whether this is causing it.
Right.
Now, there have been a couple of studies I've seen, one out of India by the Indian government, which showed that men who used mobile phones had much worse sperm count and less fertility than men that didn't use phones. And I've also heard that there are other studies that back that up as well.
Really?
So we're just starting to look at this now. Shouldn't we have done that research before we put this in classrooms?
No, apparently not. I mean, we're in a hurry, right? We're getting things done. This needs to go up right now. I don't know what's going on here.
This is industry.
Yeah. Okay, so we have the fertility potentially dropping because of this. We have so many different effects. I know that there was a Swedish study done a while back on, I think it was on the brains actually of rats, and in their research what they came up with was that the symptoms was very similar. This was in regards to cell phone radiation that the rat was subjected to, and they developed symptoms like Alzheimer's, and eventually some of the brain looked as a Swiss cheese, you know.
That's right. We had a program on here on television with Dr. Singh and Dr. Lai from Washington University, or University in Washington, Seattle, and they did research